The challenge of memorizing new words. Hi, Khuram. Have you ever felt like you learn a new word today, and then by tomorrow, it's gone? Like it just vanishes from your memory?
Oh, absolutely, Amira. I'll spend hours going over a word list, but then when I try to use the words, I draw a complete blank. It's so frustrating.
I hear you, Khuram. But here's the thing, memorizing new words doesn't have to be so difficult. There are some smart strategies that can make it fun, effective, and even creative. Want to hear about them?
Yes, please. I'm ready to learn. What's the first tip?
Tip 1. Using mnemonics to make words memorable. Let's start with mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory aids that help you remember words by creating a vivid or funny mental image. The sillier, the better. For example, the word brilliant means extremely clever or bright. I imagine a giant light bulb glowing so brightly it lights up the entire city. What do you think?
That's clever. I like the idea of using a funny image. For the word chaos, which means complete disorder, I'd imagine a room full of cats knocking things over, papers flying everywhere, just pure chaos.
That's an excellent one, Khuram. The crazier your image, the better your brain remembers it. Let's try another, fragile, meaning easily broken. How would you picture it?
I'd imagine a glass vase wobbling on a tightrope. It looks like it could fall and shatter at any moment. How's that?
Perfect. Here's a tip for our listeners. If you're learning words for a test or a project, take 5 words and create silly images for each of them. Don't overthink it, just go with the first idea that pops into your head. Interactive activity, mnemonics challenge. Let's make this fun. Khuram, I'll give you a word, and you try to come up with a mnemonic for it. Ready? The word is tedious, which means boring or long.
Okay. How about this? I imagine a snail crawling across a giant, boring book, taking forever to finish. That feels pretty tedious.
I love it. Listeners, play along at home. Pick a word you're learning and create a silly or exaggerated image for it. It'll stick in your memory like glue. Tip 2. Repetition with context. Now, let's move to repetition with context. Repeating a word in isolation isn't enough, you need to use it in sentences to make it meaningful. For example, with brilliant, I might say, the brilliant scientist invented a new technology. Your turn, Khuram. Use chaos in a sentence.
Let's see. The chaos in the kitchen made it impossible to cook dinner. Does that work?
That's perfect. Using words in sentences helps you understand how they fit into real conversations. Let's try another. Use meticulous, which means very careful and precise, in a sentence.
The artist was so meticulous that she painted every leaf on the tree with perfect detail. How does that sound?
That's fantastic. And here's an idea for listeners. Write down 5 sentences using your new words, then say them out loud. Speaking the words reinforces them even more. Interactive activity, sentence-making game. Let's play a quick game, Khuram. I'll say a word, and you create a sentence for it on the spot. Ready? The word is fragile.
The package was labeled fragile, so I handled it very carefully. How's that?
Great example. Let's do one more. Indispensable, meaning absolutely necessary.
All right. Clean water is indispensable for a healthy life. Did I nail it?
Absolutely. And listeners, challenge yourself to do this with a friend or family member. It's a great way to turn learning into a fun, shared activity. Tip 3. Spaced repetition for long-term learning. Now let's talk about spaced repetition, one of the most effective ways to retain new words. This involves reviewing words at regular intervals like 1 day later, then 3 days, then a week. The goal is to remind your brain before it forgets. Let's try it with the word indispensable.
I really like that word. My sentence would be, water is indispensable for survival. I've tried spaced repetition with flashcards before, but it can get a little boring. Any tips to spice it up?
Definitely. Try pairing spaced repetition with something creative, like a story or a drawing. For example, write a short story using your new words and reread it every few days. Or create a quick quiz for yourself. Ask, what's one thing indispensable in my daily routine? Then answer it.
Oh, that's a fun idea. I might write a short diary entry and sneak my vocabulary words into it. That way, I get to practice and review at the same time.
I love that. Listeners, give it a try. Combine spaced repetition with something you enjoy, like writing or storytelling. It makes the process so much more enjoyable. Tip 4. Add visual aids to your learning. Let's move to visual aids. Adding images, drawings, or even emojis to your learning can make vocabulary more memorable. For example, for brilliant, I'd use a picture of a glowing diamond. What about you, Khuram? How would you represent chaos?
I'd draw a messy room with clothes, papers, and toys everywhere. Even if it's not a great drawing, it'll help me remember the word.
That's fantastic. You could also use flashcards with pictures or emojis. For fragile, I'd use a cracked vase emoji or a picture of a broken glass. What about meticulous?
I'd use a magnifying glass emoji, like someone carefully examining something. It fits perfectly.
Great choice. Listeners, create your own visual aids for the words you're learning. Don't worry about being an artist, it's about making it personal and fun. Tip 5. Connect words to your daily life. Another powerful tip is to connect words to your daily life. For example, I might use tedious to describe waiting in a long line at the supermarket. Khuram, how would you connect brilliant or chaos to your weekend?
My weekend was brilliant because I found the perfect cafe to relax in, but it turned into chaos when a group of noisy kids came in.
That's a great example. And listeners, think about your own daily life. Which word fits it best? Write it down or share it with a friend. It's a great way to practice. Tip 6. Practice, practice, practice. And finally, the golden rule. Practice makes perfect. The more you use new words in conversations, the more natural they'll feel. Let's try something fun. Khuram, can you tell me a short story using brilliant, chaos, and meticulous?
Sure. The brilliant chef worked meticulously to prepare a special dinner, but chaos broke out when his assistant dropped the main dish. How's that?
That's brilliant. And listeners, try this too. Make up your own short story using today's vocabulary. The more creative, the better. Homework. Take action with today's vocabulary. Now, here's your homework, everyone. Pick 2 new words from today's episode, any 2 you like, and make it your mission to use them at least 5 times in conversations this week.
Ooh, I like this challenge. I think I'll choose meticulous and indispensable. Amira, any tips on how to work them into conversations?
Definitely. For meticulous, you could say, "You're so meticulous with your work, it's always perfect." And for indispensable, you could say, my phone is indispensable when I travel. How about you, Khuram? Any ideas?
Let's see. The architect was meticulous in designing the new building, works. And for indispensable, I might say, a good night's sleep is indispensable for my energy.
Those are fantastic examples. Listeners, try this exercise. Write down your 2 words and keep track of when you use them. You'll feel so accomplished by the end of the week. Vocabulary recap and closing. Let's recap today's words: brilliant, extremely clever or bright, chaos, complete disorder, fragile, easily broken, meticulous, very careful and precise, indispensable, absolutely necessary, and tedious, boring or long.
Thanks, Amira. These tips were so helpful. I feel confident I can make real progress this week.
That's the spirit, Khuram. And listeners, remember, learning new words is like building a skill. Practice, patience, and creativity make all the difference. We'll see you next time with travel-related vocabulary. Happy learning, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Amira. And goodbye to all our listeners. See you next time.